Welcome to a special edition of Cashin In, the candidates, the economy, and the future for American prosperity. If you're paying attention this week, you likely heard President Obama take a victory lap over some data that came out suggesting the economy is doing great.
We turned around a declining economy. Thanks, Obama.
The Census Bureau said wages increased 5.2% from 2014 to 2015, a huge jump for certain, and the poverty rate dropped a substantial 1.2%. These numbers appear to be good news for the middle class, but let's add some context to these claims. The truth is, it's been a rough decade for the middle class. In 2014, the poverty rate skyrocketed to a near historic highs of nearly 15%. So a drop of 1% is good, but dropping from such an elevated level remains a major concern for America. Wages have remained stagnant for years, and even with the reported jump, wages are still 1.6% below the level they were in 2007, nearly a decade ago. The bottom line, the economy has squeezed the American middle class for 10 years under both Presidents Bush and Obama. We've seen the urban plight our major cities have experienced. In Detroit, abandoned homes number in the tens of thousands. In Baltimore, where poverty is still soaring at 23%. And unemployment among young African Americans is a staggering 26%, 5 times the national rate. To Chicago, my hometown, where it breaks my heart to report that there have been over 500 murders year to date, many blaming poor economic opportunity for that crime tsunami there. Economic malaise has drained our middle class. Economic malaise has bankrupted our minority communities. Economic malaise has driven a record number of young people to move in with their parents, while massive numbers of our greatest generation, the elderly, are flat out broke. So we wanted to get back to our Cashin In roots this Saturday, and we're going to debate this. Is America really better off? And which candidate for president can bring prosperity back to our middle class? The American middle class is our focus because it's there, the middle class, the backbone of our country, that American prosperity will thrive or die. Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Bowling. Joining us for this week's special, Mercedes Schlapp, Morgan Ortegas, and Julie Roginski. Welcome, everybody. We asked both campaigns for their top economic ideas if they were elected president, so let's get straight to it. We're going to get to Hillary Clinton in just a minute. We're going to start with Donald Trump, who outlined his economic plan on Thursday. He wants to cut taxes by $4.4 trillion over 10 years, cut corporate tax rate to 15% from 35%, renegotiate trade deals, halt new regulations and scrap some current green regulations, and provide child care assistance for working parents. Now, Mercedes, Trump says his plan will boost the economy and create 25 million jobs. Can he do that?
Well, I think Trump has the right formula to move forward with a pro-growth tax cut in terms of simplifying the tax code, reducing the marginal tax rates. I mean, what's happening here, and you mentioned this, Eric, in the beginning, is the fact that for the American worker, it's very difficult for them to get ahead. And this has to do a lot with policies that President Obama and Hillary Clinton support and have put in place, which is that of Obamacare, for instance, which, as we know, for small businesses in particular, it strangles these corporations from wanting to invest in their employees. I take my nephew, who's working in the service industry. He can't get a 40-hour job. He has to get only a 30-hour job because the company is not willing to put in and pay for Obamacare. So reducing the regulations, reducing the corporate rates, what does this do, Eric? It helps to create economic expansion. It helps to bring capital home from abroad, and it helps to encourage investment.
Yeah, let me take that to Julie now. A lot of Trump's plan is based on a 3.5%, somewhere between 3.5% and 4% growth. That's aggressive, but you know, cutting the corporate tax rate, that's one area where we could really stimulate the economy. 3.5% is not out of the question, Jules.
Well, you know, every economist from every respectable economist, I should say, from the Congressional Budget Office and many others think that's an incredibly unrealistic proposal. I'd love to hear him lay out exactly how he's going to do it. Pie-in-the-sky proposals without actual specifics are just that. They're pie-in-the-sky proposals. Look, he's talked about a lot about what he won't do. He said he'll repeal Obamacare. He's talked about replacing it, but he's going to tell us we have to stay tuned for how he's going to do that. I'd love to hear some details on that. I'm very happy to hear that Republicans are finally in the bandwagon with paid family leave. I'd like to see it expanded to real family leave and not just to women who've given birth, but also to their partners, to the fathers who may take care of the child. and to others. So, you know, these are nice baby steps, but again, without any specifics, all we're hearing from Donald Trump is, again, trust me, trust me.
We outlined 4 or 5 bullet points with specifics.
Where are the specifics underlining those? How is he going to achieve that? What's he going to do? He's going to cut taxes?
I mean,
how is he going to
look
pay,
at
for
that
example,
corporate tax rate, for example.
How is he going to pay for it?
But, for example, this corporate tax rate, it doesn't cost you a penny. You cut the corporate tax rate from 35 down to 15.
And magically?
Of course, the revenue, if everything were to, if the pie were to stay the same, you'd lose 30% or maybe 50% of your tax revenue or more. But when the pie grows,
how's he going to grow it?
Morgan, let me throw it to Morgan. If you don't get growth, if lowering taxes doesn't stimulate growth, then forget it. It's not going to work anyway. But it does, and it has in the past.
Well, and if we're talking about bringing American corporations and jobs back into the United States, one of the reasons that we see people like Ford Motor Company going to Mexico is because they're incentivized to do so because of the tax rate. So lowering that tax base is going and stopping all of the heinous regulations that have happened over the past 8 years are going to drive corporations back in the U.S. Eric, this is also really smart because we've been saying for months that Trump should be talking about the issues, and he is talking about the issues again. According to the latest Bloomberg poll, 51% of Americans trust him with the economy more than Hillary Clinton. And so I think that it's smart that he's bringing back these issues and not talking about some of the silly and petty things we heard a few months ago.
Can I just jump in? Let's be very clear about why these products are made in places like Mexico or China or other places, because they pay their workers pennies on the dollar. Now, if we want to replicate that here in the United States...
Well, that's one reason, Julie.
That's one thing you want to talk about.
Reason.
Do you think
another
Apple
one of the reasons, Morgan is 100% right. Yes, cost of labor is one reason. But the other one of the big reasons is, let's just say, the corporate tax rate here in America, Jewel, is 35%, far higher than any other developed or developing country.
The effective tax rate is really not that.
That's a statutory tax rate. The tax rate is still 35%. It makes almost no sense to open a brand new plant or factory in America when you can do it overseas and Mercedes jump in here for substantially lower rates.
What's the effective tax rate, Eric? It's not 35%. I mean, we both know it.
We don't know the exact effective tax rate.
Because everybody has deduction after deduction.
Of course, but I'll tell you where it starts here. It starts at 35 and it starts substantially lower in foreign countries. Go ahead, Mercedes.
It's no question that the companies, many American corporations, have actually left the United States to go abroad because of the fact that the corporate tax rate is so high. We got to ask ourselves the question, are we going to move towards a redistribution of income economy, or are we going to move towards economic expansion through investment in the United States? The way to do that and to encourage and spur investment is by lowering that tax rate. That is the way they're going to invest in our workers and also bring these companies back to the United States. You have to have those incentives to come.
I want to bring this back to Julie for a second. You know, you're talking about what Morgan points out, why manufacturing may go overseas. And yes, that's highly reliant on labor costs here and overseas. But the tax inversions that we've seen, Pfizer,
Eric,
we've seen major corporations, and has nothing to do, Jules, not a thing to do with manufacturing.
And regulations.
Simply,
you have to remember that.
Right, the tax and the regulation environment here, business environment here versus overseas.
So no question, tax inversions are ridiculous, and I think both sides have said they need to be addressed. But I have to keep coming back to the fact that Donald Trump and everybody else who talks about bringing jobs back, especially manufacturing jobs back to the United States, needs to really level with people. And that is to say that unless you want to eliminate the minimum wage across the board and start paying people virtually next to nothing, like some of these third world countries do, to manufacture our products here, which nobody supports.
Julie,
you're not going to make Nike sneakers here. You're not going to make iPads.
It's a business environment where you want businesses who want to invest in America. That's going to be the first step. You have to create a healthy business environment where their corporations are not paying excessive taxes, where they're able to hire employees and not have to deal with the immense cost of Obamacare.
I hate to do this because I have to save time for Hillary's plan. So we got to cut it off right there. Coming up, fair